Hey guys, and welcome to Quality Shot. I am really excited to be joined by Sean Dickson, professional cricketer for Durham County Cricket. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, good. Thanks. Thanks for having me on.
No worries. Thanks very much for being on. How have you been, firstly, in these pretty weird times at the moment?
Not too bad, actually. We're allowed to train, being a professional outlet, so it's almost just like a normal winter, really. You leave the house to go hit balls, and you come back and almost isolate yourself from the world. But no, it's going all right. Thanks.
That's good. Okay, so you talked about going to hit some balls, and as an elite sportsman, you're able to go and train normally. So for people that are a little bit unaware, as a county cricketer, what do you do then in your off season, training wise, etc.?
So being a foreigner, I do sometimes go back home to South Africa, just to get my fix of family and friends and the sun. But obviously with COVID, it's a bit more difficult. So this is technically my second full winter here in the UK. But that'll pretty much consist of hitting balls about 3 times a week, and that will be basically skill work. So we'll kind of groove and find certain areas to work on and really rectify those areas. But yeah, it's quite monotonous. It can be a bit boring, but it's very essential to kind of getting it all fixed up and ready for the season in April.
Okay, so is it almost a little bit of muscle memory work, trying to kind of get into the motion of playing certain shots and getting ready for that county season?
Yeah, it's like I said, it's very monotonous. So it's just ongoing. If you're working on your cover drive, it's hundreds and hundreds of balls on the same shot, and if you're working on your defense, etc., it's hundreds of balls on that one shot. So it can get quite taxing, but it's definitely worthwhile and very important.
Okay, so it sounds like tightening your game up then in the off season and working on things, and that's quite interesting actually.
Yeah, I mean
I try.
that falls. Sorry, no, that just falls in and around all the fitness work too, and the strength and conditioning.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, how much now as a modern cricketer? Because back in the day, I'd assume they don't really do that much strength and conditioning. But nowadays, how much emphasis is there on strength and conditioning, kind of non-cricket or skill-based work? If you gave it like a percentage.
Right now, I'd probably say I'd even go as far as say 60-40. 60% S&C focus compared to 40% skill focus. That's obviously the time of year, though. This is what S&Cs are paid for. The winters, because that's when they can really get their nails stuck into you and really work out strength and fitness work around your game.
Okay, that makes sense. And as you're in the off season, so you at the moment based in Durham as well, then?
I am. I'm renting a place in Durham. My lovely fiance is in Kent still, which she'll probably stay for the rest of this year. So it'll be kind of a back and forward traveling for me. But yeah, we obviously discussed all this when I signed the deal back in August last year.
Yeah, so initially it was on loan, but now it's a 2-year deal, right, for Durham?
2+1, so it is a 2-year deal signed, but then the third year, it's an automatic third year if you meet certain criteria.
Okay, so performance-based, I'm assuming, or something to do with that, appearances-wise and
Yes.
something like that? Yeah. Okay, that sounds cool. For people that maybe want to get an insight into it, because I'm a little bit interested as well, tell me a little bit about your cricket journey growing up, because I know, originally you're from South Africa as well. So just tell me about your experiences, I guess, growing up and up until, I guess, making your debut for Kent. Like, how did you get there?
Oh, mate, I could write a book. So growing up in South Africa, I started playing cricket when I was about 6 or 7. it wasn't a main focus. I loved all sports. I loved my squash, my football, my cricket, hockey, tennis, anything I could get my hands on, really. But cricket for me was the most challenging, and that's what kind of drew me to it more and more and more. I'd like to think, if I didn't, I would be a, Premier League footballer now if I maybe stuck with that, but earn a bit more money. No, I really enjoyed the challenge of cricket, and it really had so many ups and downs when I was a younger lad, that it kept drawing me back. That feeling of success kept drawing me back. But no, then I made my first class debut in South Africa for the Northerns team, amateur team then, back in 2013, I think it was, 2012, 2013, which for me was a dream come true in the first place. I don't know if you want me to reiterate my schooling and stuff like that, but we'll keep it first class cricket.
Go for it.
Well, I think it's important to note how a big part of my journey was between the age of 18 and probably 23 when I made my debut. A lot of cricketers, and this is really important for the younger cricketers out there, they want it now. They want success, and they want to make the teams, and they want to experience it all right now. And being in South Africa, that taught me a lot because of the quota system there. It was much tougher for the white players to make a team of 11, because you had to make a team of 6 essentially, and vice versa for black and players of color. They also had to gun for a spot of 5. So it was very challenging. So making teams was never easy. You had to perform, but not only perform, but you had to do better than your counterpart, even if you did perform. But yeah, so that kind of period from 18 was where I really started to grow as a cricketer. At school, I was very technical, but I wasn't very strong, and I wasn't very ambitious in my game. I worried about getting out a lot. Whereas from 18 to 23, I really kicked on. I went to England when I was 18 for a whole year, which was one of the best years of my life. That was where I really started to click and really I started to play shots I didn't even know I had, just because I had that freedom and that independence to do so. And then I went to the Tuks Cricket Academy in Pretoria in South Africa, which is one of the most renowned academies around the world at the time. I don't know if it's still going at the moment though, but I went there, and that was just a little stepping stone, and that really got me into the right kind of path, onto the right path of where I am today. But yeah, that helped me make my first class debut in South Africa, and then my first class innings, I got a duck, got bowled through the gate, as I'm sure a lot of first class cricketers and international cricketers, they can probably relate to that. But yeah, I ended up scoring my first class 50 the second game, and my first 100, I think 6 games in, and I ended up scoring 173 my first class 100, which is definitely an average. So, and then I studied while I was playing cricket, so taught me a lot about putting certain priorities in front of others, and I learned how to deal with that, and learned how to deal with it well. And so finished my degree, and then went over to the UK again because I loved it, and I always said I was going to. That was back in 2015. I got in touch with an agent here in the UK, which put me in touch with Kent. Went for a trial with Kent. It was a friendly 4-day game against Yorkshire Twos in Canterbury, where I opened, and Liam Plunkett was playing. He was being punished by Jason Gillespie at the time, I believe. That's why he was there. But yeah, I ended up making 146 first innings and I think a 60-odd second innings, and I just didn't stop there. I think I ended up scoring 800s in 10 weeks. among all formats for the second team, and ended up playing my first Kent game and signed for Kent at the end of August. So I think I played my first game. So I think it was the end of August. I played my first class game for Kent, which was a hell of a year for me. I wish I could replicate that year again. But no, that's kind of the journey that I had leading up to that point, and obviously the rest is history.
Nice. No, thank you for that. I'm glad you did go through the schooling as well, and kind of more of an insight, because I think it's quite interesting and important for people to hear about people's journeys, because some people, as you said, they just want it now and they don't realize the work and the background that's gone into it, and what you need to do, I guess, to get to the point you're at. So it's quite important to know that, the hard work and graft is put in beforehand. It's not just given to someone on a plate. Like, you've got to do the hard yards, which is quite interesting. Playing first class cricket in South Africa, what would you say then is the biggest difference between playing it in South Africa and then here in the UK, now that you've experienced both?
It's another level up in the UK. I think, being 18 counties, you could arguably say it would be the same, but there's so much cricket in the UK. There's clubs and clubs and clubs and clubs and players, and so many players. And I know it's only a small island, but when it comes to cricket and the structure of cricket in the UK, it's so much better than South Africa. So playing first class cricket in South Africa, you could play at an amateur level. So you get the 6 franchises. So you got Titans, Knights, Lions, Cobras, etc. And then their B team, so their amateur team, which is also regarded as first class. So there you get like Northerns and Western Cape, Western Province. The list is endless at this rate. But there's 12 first class amateur teams, so it makes up 18 teams. But playing for those amateur teams, obviously you're playing in the B team, so you're not technically playing against the best. Whereas in the UK, playing county cricket, you are playing against the best week in and week out. So much tougher, and also the conditions are way more challenging, I feel.
What makes the conditions more challenging here? I mean, I'm assuming it's to do with the ball that they use here as well, the Duke ball, and the movement through the air, through the on the pitch as well, are more, I guess, bowler friendly. So as a batsman, they're more challenging. What's the difference in South Africa as a batsman? What are the kind of different challenges you face?
You're absolutely spot on. That's one of the biggest differences is the Duke ball. It's a lovely ball when you get in, because it stays hard for 80 overs. But on the other hand, it still swings for 80 overs and nips around for 80 overs. So, brings the bowlers into the game for a lot longer. Whereas in South Africa, they use the kookaburra ball, which, depending on what kookaburra ball it is, it can go soft after 20 overs. So that is a lot different. But the pitches there's way more grass on these wickets in England. Compared to South Africa. South Africa, they take the weather out of it. It's more like clay, so it gets very, very hard, and there's not much moisture underneath, which doesn't allow for grass to grow on it. So the bounce, it's got way more bounce and carry, but at the same time that can change, so it can go very up and down. Because there's no moisture underneath. So, whereas an English wicket will stay more true. So it'll be more challenging, but it'll be a bit more true. It won't really go up and down and do funny things. Unless it's obviously very hot, in which case it does.
Okay, so it's a bit more up and down in South Africa, a little bit of variable bounce then, compared to, I guess, here. But here
generally quicker.
Yeah.
So be up and down, but quicker. Much quicker.
Yeah. You see Anrik Nortje loves the South African wickets, doesn't he? Running and bowling. Yeah.
Well, I'd say he loves him, but he also hates him at the same time. he loves him because he gets good bounce and good carry and it's good pace, but he probably hates him when it's absolutely dead flat and he can't get anything out of the wicket.
Yeah, that makes sense to you, I guess. Whereas here, I guess, if he came back with the older ball, he'll have more purchase, won't he? So it's interesting, the different conditions. That's what they say that, going around the world and playing different conditions, it's a completely different ball game. Some people can, they struggle in different parts of the world and you just think, oh, but it's the same thing, it's 22 yards, it's a cricket ball, you got a bat, what's the difference? But people don't realise that the conditions play such a massive part.
Look at the English team now against Sri Lanka. I mean, that was a prime example. I mean, someone like Zak Crawley, who I opened the batting with at Kent. He's a great talent. He showed what he can do against Pakistan during the 2020 season. I mean, he's obviously struggling there now, but unfortunately at that level, it becomes a bit of a tag. And once you've got that tag, getting it off is a bit tough. So, I mean, I'm going to be very interested to see how Zak deals with that.
Yeah, so he had I'm originally from Pakistan, so I was watching that game, and obviously I grew up here. I was born here in the UK. But yeah, I watched that England-Pakistan series with a lot of interest, and Zak Crawley hit that huge double 100. But it's interesting, as you said, because in the subcontinent, like you see someone like Joe Root or Johnny Bairstow, and they're more experienced, and it seems like because they've had more experience in the subcontinent, they just look so much more comfortable, even on a turning track. But as you said, like Zak Crawley, for example, who you battled with and has clearly got immense talent, just really struggled, and you just saw that kind of golf in class and maybe its experience as well. But after, I guess, your experiences batting with him and seeing him, do you just think it's a case of it's a learning curve? Because I'm assuming he's going to go down to 3 anyway when Rory Burns comes back for the India tour, so he'll probably have a bit more time, I guess, with the ball as well. But do you just think it's more a learning curve for him this tour and this whole, I guess, winter period in the subcontinent?
I think I'm about to name drop here. Someone like Aiden Markram, who I'm very close with back home. He's in my opinion one of the most talented cricketers. He's a great person, great cricketer, but he unfortunately struggled in India. And like I said about those tags, he's now he's got that tag that he struggles in Asian conditions. And that doesn't take away from the talent that he possesses. It's just now this tag is just so difficult for him to get off. And unfortunately, as cricketers, we are scrutinized in the media and freedom of speech, everything like that on Twitter and Instagram, all that kind of stuff. And it's tough to kind of shake it off in a way. So I think for younger players, when they are that talented, I think the best thing to do is actually to almost ignore everything that's going on and ignore the conditions, ignore the bowler, ignore everything, and work to your strengths. What's made you successful. I know, for instance, Zak, he came over to India a couple of years ago. During the winter, he went over and he went to a spin camp. He just worked on facing spin and facing loads of bowlers, and he's got that confidence. It's there, and I know Aiden did the same thing in India, but they've both got that confidence. It's just a case of just climbing that mountain, just getting over that speed bump and really kind of enjoying it for what it is, and instead of they're probably stressing about it. They're probably going every morning, every chance they get to go and work on facing spin and options, and it can become a bit more of a weight rather than enjoyment. They end up like finding it's quite heavy on their shoulders, and all of a sudden they, I'm now nicking off, and when I don't normally, and so it's just a case of like kind of shaking it off, realizing, what am I good at? For example, Zak is a very attacking player. What am I good at? I'm good at dominating spin, so I'm going to go out there, I'm going to dominate spin, and I'm going to back myself to the nth degree, and hopefully that works for him. But he needs to learn that.
No, that's really interesting. I guess so. Obviously, not to the same standard, but I opened the batting for my local club, just a Surrey Championship level, or Surrey Championship level at the whatever grade it is. So, and it's funny because I even see with myself, and you're saying it, but I'm assuming even at the top international level, like these guys, in a way, it sounds like what you're saying is to simplify it in a way and not overthink it. And you're saying, sometimes people, and sometimes people just, they get inside their own heads and it's more like a mental block. And what would you say is someone who opens the batting as well? What would you say, how much of the game really is a mental side? Because you said, look, Zak Crawley and Aiden Markram, they've gone to these spin camps, they've done all this work. Obviously, then when they've gone into the middle, it hasn't quite worked for them in those conditions. So there's a lot of it it's the mental side of things and really being comfortable in your own skin and your own game.
I mean, you've got a handful of cricketers at the moment who are fortunate enough to, have climbed that mountain or that hill or whatever analogy you want to use. They've been lucky enough to do that quite early in their careers. Like a Joe Root, Kane Williamson, Virat Kohli, Steve Smith, like all these great players. And I mean, we're lucky enough to be in the century where we can watch players like this bat, but these players aren't doing anything different, like someone like Joe Root, a strength of his he knows is sweeping, and he does it. Let's say hypothetically he went that first test, first sweep, top edge, out. That's where it gets tough. That's where the challenge starts, because now all of a sudden he knows a strength of mine and is to sweep. In the past, I've swept in these conditions. Now all of a sudden it's got me out, or it's got me out once or twice. Now what? So like that's where it starts to become a challenge, and that's where these players need to go, take themselves away and actually say, what's going to make me successful? What has made me successful? And stick to it. Cricket's a funny game, man. I've had this conversation with so many players, and it's such a funny game because one slight mistake and you're out, or one little chance and you're gone. Whereas the guy on the other end nicks it and gets dropped at first slip, and you're there struggling, and all of a sudden you get the absolute jaffa and you nicks you off blinding catch up from the keeper, and you're walking off and you're like, how? I mean, like, why me? Why didn't I get lucky? So it all comes down to luck and timing, I believe. Root it's just the right time for him. Whereas like a Zak, it just wasn't the right time. Back against Pakistan, that was the right time. And that's it baffles my mind and frustrates me to the nth degree. But you've just got to take it for what it is and try and enjoy it. Try and enjoy it.
It sounds like, well, I know from experience, it's an unforgiving game, right, cricket? And at the end of the day, like you said about Joe Root, like if he'd swept and top edge one and he'd got caught, then they would be saying, or he would have been thinking to himself maybe, oh, I haven't scored 100 for the whole of 2020. He would have been thinking to himself, oh, okay, do I need to change something here? Whereas like Zak Crawley, as you said, so his game is being attacking, so he's come down the pitch. He's come down the pitch and he's tried to go over mid on. And everyone's saying, including me to be fair, I'm thinking to myself, why has he done that? But you're saying to me, actually, he's an attacking player. That's his strength. So he's probably thinking I shouldn't do it again.
That's sweep, effectively. If you want to look at it that way. That's Joe Root sweeping the ball. That's his bread and butter. Zak's bread and butter is coming down the wicket here over the top. But now he's got, almost got that pressure on him where, oh shit, that didn't work. Now I've got to turn to something else. And now he's turned to more of a defensive game. Now he's nicking it. So now it's like, it's such a catch-22. How do I deal with these mental, challenges? And, back to your earlier question, which I didn't answer. I mean, cricket is 90 to 95% mental and 5 to 10% skill. I mean, I can name you hundreds of cricketers that have abundance of talent, more than, the best in the world, but they just haven't cracked it mentally, and then I can name you those other cricketers who have no talent, but an absolute mental capability to, tackle any condition, any challenge, and they'll succeed because they're mentally stronger than the next.
Yeah, that makes complete sense, and it's funny because I mean, at my level, which is such, as I said, it's completely different. But even more so, you'll see like I'll hit 40 odd, and I haven't no chances given, but the guy at the other end might get dropped 4 times, and go on to get 100, and then I'll get out for 49, for example, and I'll just get a really good ball. And you just think, oh man, and then you go home and you just think, well, how did that happen? But it's cricket. It's such a crazy game, and it is a game like no other because I play football and tennis and other sports, but it's all very different because I feel like in cricket, it's the only sport where it's a team sport, but it's based almost on individual performances a little bit. Obviously, you field as a unit in the field, but even then, you're fielding wise, like you field as a unit, but again, it's still individual in the sense that you're fielding the ball individually, and there might be a bit of teamwork there.
Nothing about cricket is. Okay, wait, hold on. Let me retract that statement because it's wrong. Everything about cricket is individual. Okay, it's the outcome that is team based. So everything's individual: batting, bowling, fielding, everything. But it's the outcome. So the collective is what determines results. So my individual performance of 20 plus his individual performance of 20 makes 40. So that's now the team total, so that's the only team part of cricket, is just the outcome. Maybe when it comes to tactics, that might be more team based in terms of, okay, we'll chuck this guy up the order to, go and score a quick fire 20 or 30 just to get us going. And then this guy will bat down here in the order because we want him to bat longer and spin and seam and all this kind of stuff. And so that's where team element comes into it, more tactics. But actual performance and actual getting the task done, so individual. And everything is on your shoulders. Whether you're a bowler or a batter, everything is on your shoulders.
Yeah, I agree. That's probably why it's so mentally taxing, as you said as well, which is quite interesting. So you've let's go on to you a little bit now because I wanted to talk about your experiences. So at Kent, you said, you signed there in 2017 and you scored a huge 318, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, in 2017. How was it scoring such a ridiculous, that just blows my mind, 318. And I think you're just 4 runs short of the record, actually, the Kent's record, which is 332, sorry. But you... Yeah, 13. Sorry, yeah, and but you scored the biggest. It was the biggest score at home, I think, wasn't it, at the home ground?
Yeah, the previous highest was Matt Walker, of 275, I think it was. Yeah, mate, I don't know. I've had this conversation so many times.
Is it like a once in a kind of blue moon that you just have everything just clicked into place and it's?
I hope not. I hope it's not once in a blue moon. I hope it happens 2 or 3 times in my career. Look, I had an interview after the game and they were asking me about it, and I said, very broadly, very confident, because the world was such a great place then. I was like, now that I know I can do it again. And I watched that back and I went, what was I saying? Like, that just does not happen again. And if it does, you're just a very lucky cricketer, But mate, I struggled up to that point. I was averaging 26, I think it was 26, 27. And I'm very close with Daniel Baldrummond from Kent. Him and I share very, very similar traits. And I mean, him and I have this conversation all the time. But as an opening batter, especially in the UK, you have the hardest job facing the new ball. Okay, so basically, what is deemed as success as an opener? Is it getting the lacquer off the ball? Is it, batting as long as you possibly can so that it gets really easy for the rest of the batters? Or is it about making massive hundreds and about averaging 40 and like a lot of cricketers end up focusing so highly on averages and what's my strike rate, what's my average, what's this, what's that, how many hundreds, all this kind of stuff. And it's like they'll come. Don't get me wrong, but I just struggled at that point. And I think I scored a couple 50s up to that point, but averaging 26, I was struggling. I was waiting for that next knock. And I tell you what, it was a flat wicket, obviously. And I got in and I just felt this kind of ruthlessness come over me. And I didn't want to get out. I just did not want to give anybody a sniff. And to be fair, majority of my hundreds I've made in my career have been in similar situations. And I think that's why I go on to make such big hundreds, because 100 isn't enough. Like getting 100 just is not enough. I need more, because I know next week I'm going to be playing at home on an absolute green seamer and I'm going to make 5 and 10, and all of a sudden this 100 is going to make up for that knock. And unfortunately, because it is so stats based, that's how you think. And I guess I just got to 100 and then 150. And I remember I was batting with Joe Denley at the time, got to 200. And, I remember then thinking, I'm not getting out here. There's absolutely no chance I'm giving this away. I think I gave my first chance at it was 260. And that was a reverse sweep that I tried to paddle, ended up gloving it to the keeper and he dropped it on 260 odds. So, I mean, I just had, I don't know what came over me, but I did not want to get out. And I showed that.
Well, hopefully I'll have one of those in my future. Not as important, I'm sure, but it won't be as important, but it'll be great.
Hope it happens again, put it that way.
Yeah, exactly. Well, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed, who knows. And that stand, I think, was 382 with Joe Denley. So you saw a lot of each other on that day.
We got passed this year by Jack Leaning and Jordan Cox.
Yeah. It's all right. It's all right.
Yeah.
Records are there to be broken, aren't they?
Records are meant to be broken.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. Yeah, records are there to be broken. To be fair, how was the stand with Joe Denley then? It must have made you guys a little bit closer, having to bat together for so long.
He's a remarkable human. I mean, he's one of the most intimidating players you'll ever play with. Not to the point of arrogance or outspoken, but to the point of being such a good player and such a great guy, but not saying much. So not really knowing where you stand. So you'll kind of rock up to the team chat or into the change room and he'll be there, and you could sit in silence. I mean, you just don't know if the guy likes you or not because he just doesn't say much, but he's just got that kind of aura about him where he kind of just, he's just such a great guy and got so much talent, and but he's just so humble. So having that knock with him was remarkable. It was lovely to be able to do that with him, and we've had numerous ones since, him and I. We for some reason we just back quite well together, but. Yeah, he's a top guy and a top player, and he deserves to still be wearing the England jersey, in my opinion.
Right, well, he's definitely had some very good knocks for England since making his return to international cricket, for sure, I think, and some very vital knocks. So, yeah, whether he should be playing for England or not, I guess is an interesting topic. England is so strong now, I think, in all three formats, and it's. The fact that he even, I think, got back into that side, given the strength of England cricket at the moment, is huge, and the impact he had was really big at the time, I think, for sure. So what's the difference then between the two grounds? So Kent's home ground, which is St Lawrence ground, if I'm not mistaken, and Durham's at Riverside. What's the difference as an opening batsman or as a batsman on those two grounds?
I loved playing at Canterbury for my first 2-3 seasons there. We had 3 summers in a row that was decent weather, good to decent weather, and something about Canterbury just playing in the sun just felt flat. But 2018, 2019, two of my toughest years, it just became so difficult to bat there. It became a pitch that just decided to do everything. And, it showed in results how, teams are losing within 3 days. There was a game they did within 2 days, I think, at one stage. But, it was tough. It was tough to bat, and it was tough to get in and go big. But, I've only played at Durham now kind of a handful of times. And it's similar conditions. There's just no slope to deal with, which there is at Canterbury. But again, it's all weather dependent. I feel like anywhere in the UK, as soon as it becomes kind of overcast and dull, it just swings more and becomes just tougher to bat. But yeah, I'd say probably the Riverside. It's just a little bit slower too, but slower, but a bit too paced. But yeah, well, hopefully we get the opportunity to get in and score some big runs there next season.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Hopefully, we get a full season of cricket. I think.
I think we will do. I think we will. I think last year was just such a surprise year that no one could cope. No one knew what they were up against. Which now I think, and the Premier League football has shown that how, it can be dealt with. It can be dealt with in the right way with all this, these bubble setups and all that. Like it can be dealt with in the right way, and I think it will. It will happen. Fingers crossed. Though.
Yeah, fingers crossed, 100%. We want to see that. I mean, obviously England have had some games here at home, so I'm assuming those international games will definitely go ahead. So there's definitely a way of doing it. It sounds a bit silly asking because I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but what are your plans then for this season? Do you have, before the season starts, do you have set goals? Like I want to score X amount of runs at least in a season. What's kind of your aspirations?
I've always struggled with goals because I find them to be very what's the word, draining in a way. It weighs you down. I feel like the process is so much more important than the outcome. How you get there means more than the outcome itself, because if I make sure that I tick certain boxes, those outcomes will naturally happen. Whereas if I fixate too much on those outcomes, every batter wants to score 1,000 Champo runs a year. And I've not yet to do it. I think I got to 900 one season. But it's been a goal of mine to get to 1,000, and I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't think about that, because I do. But it's not the do-all and end-all for me. I think setting those type of goals, it just weighs you down, in my opinion. So I like smaller ones. I like to set myself hundreds. So I like to get at least 300s a year in Champo cricket, which I think is good for an opening batter. So three plus is good, and one of those to be a big one. So I call them daddy hundreds. So to score at least 300s with at least one of them being like 150 plus would be nice. And then when it comes to T20 cricket and stuff like that, I just want to play. I just want to be in the side.
T20 cricket. Yeah, T20 cricket is interesting, isn't it? Yeah, I'm the same. I'm actually the same. I don't think about runs. I think about I'll set myself a goal. Okay, the last season I scored at least 100, and I say, okay, well, I want to score better what I did last season. That's why I think I'm pretty simple as well. I agree with you. I think the runs thing's difficult.
You want to do better than you did the year before. I think that's key to kind of keep you going. But at the same time, you also need to acknowledge what you're doing and what the team's doing. I mean, I remember back in 2018, we got promoted. Kent got promoted that year. I think I averaged 29 into the season, but I scored like 830 runs or something like that. So I had a good year, but I averaged 29. I got 300s that year, did nicely. I think I got one big 100 against Warwickshire or something. But anyway, I'd done it right, but average 29. And you know, for any batter, they ideally want to average above 35. But we had one of our best years. We got promoted. We, you know, got to the one day cup final. We got to the quarters in the T20. You know, it's a good season. And so what then justifies, you know, a good year? Because if I averaged 29 up front and we still got promoted, I see that as a successful year. You know, so that's why those outcome-based goals are difficult to fathom, because you are so dictated by external elements that it is so difficult to maintain. You know, the pitches you play on. Back in 2018, there were that was one of the toughest years for batting. I think 2 players in the whole of England got above 1,000 Champo runs, and you know, that was one of the toughest batting years in England's had in a long time. But you know, we got promoted, so you know, I did a good job, but I didn't meet my criteria, or I didn't meet my standard of batting. So it is difficult. It is difficult to kind of fixate on those outcomes. Rather fixate on small processes and try and kind of tick them off as you go.
Okay, that's interesting. That's an interesting way of I might try and adopt that. In terms of so you said that T20 cricket is just about trying to get into the side, and you know, one day cricket. I'm assuming you play a lot more of that. What's your priorities like in terms of? Do you have it, or you're just like, I want to play as much cricket as possible, or do you prioritize the longer format and then maybe one day cricket and T20?
I've changed my mindset a lot over the past couple of years. I mean, I would love to play more white ball cricket. You know, I just feel like I've been very unlucky. And unfortunately, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. But, you know, I would love to play more white ball. I'd love to play more T20. I feel like I've got way more to offer in T20 cricket. And I mean, I was having this debate with a few of the guys the other day. Like, I mean, if you go look at my second 11 stats, and I know it's not anywhere near the level of first 11, but if you go look at my second 11 stats, I've batted top 3. So I've opened or batted 3 in second team in T20 cricket for 5 years, 5-6 years, and I've averaged. I think I average over 45 in T20 cricket with a strike rate of like 135 or something, which is unbelievable stats. But yet I think I've played 20 T20 games, and I've never batted above 5. So it's like, you know, where do you kind of draw the line? You know, I would love the opportunity to bat 1, 2, or 3, but I've never had that opportunity because, I don't know, maybe they want to bat with a younger player, or they feel I'm not aggressive enough or anything. But it's like, you know, 5, 6, 7, I just have to come in and swing as hard as I can. And if I succeed, I succeed. If I don't, I don't. But more cases than not, you know, you're only going to face, you know, a maximum of 10 balls a game batting 5, 6, 7, batting 6, 7. And, you know, how many of those games are you going to hit every single ball out the park? Probably 10%, 20% if you're lucky. So it is tough. It's a tough scene to crack. You just hope that you get that one chance and you take it. But it's not to put that pressure on. And I think what I've done with my white ball stuff is I've kind of just taken the pressure off it. I'm actually really excited to just play some T20 cricket, even if it's just for the second team. I feel like over the past 2 years I've not played any T20 cricket or one day cricket for that matter, and it's just like I just love to play. So I'm not even putting that in a bracket of first team. I just want to play. I want to enjoy it. I want to get out there and execute some T20 skills just to almost prove it to myself that I can still do it.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because nowadays it's I wouldn't say it's a whole different ball game, but in a way, obviously the skills you need, etc., are very different. And it's funny because nowadays, even like the England side, you have players that will only play one format, whereas before, back in the day, it was even when T20 started, it was everyone you just put the same side for your Test cricket, for your one day cricket, and then when T20 cricket came along, it was you pick the same side for that. But now it's not. It's hold on, your openers like Crawley and Sibley, they open the Test cricket, but then you have Bairstow and Roy who open white ball cricket. So it's like very different. And then even in T20 cricket, they're looking at Butler to open. So
Yeah.
it's just completely different. Which is really, really
it's
interesting.
so unfair, is what it is. we have to go deal with the red swinging Duke.
Yeah.
But we can't reap benefits facing the white ball. It's like, I mean, how do we win? Get thrown to the slaughterhouse in red ball cricket.
Is it a little bit of pigeonholing as well? Is it a little bit? Do you think?
Mate, tell me about it. Anyway.
It's really interesting to hear because I do see that, and obviously there's a handful of players that are seen as being the kind of the three format players. So it's quite interesting to see. In terms of your kind of like long term goals, what's the ideal situation? Say, obviously, I don't want to look too far into the future. Say you have a blinder of a 2021. You score whatever 1,000 runs plus or whatever. You meet your target of hundreds and more, and your form's so good that it's impossible to ignore. Firstly, I'm pretty sure you are eligible. You would be eligible for England, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So is that the dream to play a Test match for England?
I'll be honest with you. My dream was to play cricket at a high level. What that high level was or is, is up to the gods. It sounds very, very religious of me, and I'm not a religious person, but I do believe in it. Like, I mean, I'm lucky enough to be where I am here. I've come over from South Africa, and I've had an absolute blinder of a season, signed a contract, and here I am 6 years later. I can name you hundreds of players in South Africa that would give everything to be in my position. But I think to oversee that, and put myself in a position where I'm under pressure because I want to play for England, or I want to reach this level. I think realistically, if I have a 10+ year career playing first class cricket in England, I'll be ecstatic. If that means playing for England, then fantastic news. But I'm not going to put myself under pressure to play for England. I would love to. I would love to do that. I would love to take up the challenge. I mean, I watch those England openers, and I think, what do they have that I don't? Absolutely nothing. So, there's nothing stopping me having an absolutely perler of a year and opening the batting for England in a year's, 2 years' time. And I tell you what, I'd relish it. I'd love every moment of it, and I wouldn't take it for granted. But I'm also not going to be disappointed if I don't, because I am very lucky to be where I am now, and trying to stay humble as we go.
That's a really grounded approach to have. So I think that's probably the right way to go, to be honest with you. And I guess it's one of those things that if you, as you said, I guess you're just grateful for what you got. And then if, as you said, if you have a blinder and you get the opportunity, then you take it with both hands, but you don't put pressure on yourself to set yourself and demanding and weigh you down. So that's a really good, approach. How do you think then, talking of international cricket, how do you think England will fare in India?
I think it's going to be a great series. I think it's 4 games, isn't it? Four
Yeah,
tests.
it is. Yeah.
I think it's going to be a fantastic series. I think it's going to be a lot of, there's going to be 2 or 3 young batters up front for the England side that are going to have to make their mark and really put their hands up, which is going to be interesting. I mean, I know Zak quite well now, and I mean, he's not the type of person to back down. I think there's going to be big things coming his way in India, hopefully. But I think it's going to be a great challenge. You know, we've got some really good cricketers coming back into the side. I mean, as do India. I mean, I don't even know if Virat Kohli is going to play in this series. You know, I mean, they did so well without him. It's crazy to think. But yeah, I mean, we'll have to wait and see, man. I'm very excited to kind of watch how it unfolds. But I think it'll be a good series.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Last question then, because I don't want to take up too much of your time.
Yeah.
The England first class structure in 2021 is a bit different this year, isn't it? So I think, if I'm not mistaken, 3 groups of 6 playing home and away, then 2 from each group going into 3 divisions. Then the winner of Division 1 is the county championship winner. Then I guess they play a one-off game for the Bob Willis Trophy, which is the top 2. What do you think of that format? Because to me, as a fan, I think it's a little bit confusing, and I'm not sure what was wrong with the old format. But what do you think as a player?
So the ECB have been trying to get it to almost like a 3 division or a 3. What would they call it?
3 tiers.
Tiers, yeah, or like, you know, northeast, southeast,
like regional kind of
regions. Yeah, can't think of that word anyway. So they've been trying to get it to that for some time. So for them, this was almost like a blessing in disguise, because, you know, if there's ever a better time to do it, it's now. So I mean, during COVID, they ended up doing it during the first lockdown. So you know, and that just showed them that it can work. I way prefer the Div 1, Div 2, mainly because, you know, they you know, being in Div 2 for 2 or 3 years, it just shows you how cricket can be played versus like being Div 1, how cricket can be played there. And, you know, everyone wants to be in Div 1. No one wants to be in Div 2. So you're constantly going to have that competition. But this 3-tier system now is going to be very interesting, because it's basically 6 teams in each tier, but it's not the best 6 teams playing against the best. It's 6 random teams mixed up throughout the country, and the top 2 of those regions or those groups go into Div 1, and then the middle 2 go Div 2, and the bottom 2 go Div 3. So my argument to that would be, what if you know, a very good county, for instance, has a bad run of the first 6 games, and that's not saying, you know, if any county has a bad season, they deserve to go down divisions, they deserve to not have accolades. But if they have, in the past, if you have a bad first 5-6 games, you can always have a gun 8 games or gun 7 games and really rectify your season. Whereas now, if, let's say an Essex, because they won the Bob Willis Trophy, let's say Essex go and have a very average first 6 games, and now they're at the bottom of group 2 or whatever, 3 or whatever it is. Now all of a sudden, those next 4 games that they play, it's 10 games, isn't it? It's 10 games, and then further 5 or further 4 or something like that. Further 5.
So 5, because there's 6 in a group. So 5 each games home and away.
2 each, and then you play each team in your division once. I think it's going to work like that.
Okay.
Don't take my word for it.
I'm pretty confused as well.
So if they have an average first 6 games, and then let's say they then kick into gear, it might be too late. They might be looking at like Div 2, Div 3 after being the county championship winners the year before, just because they didn't kick off as quick as other counties did. But, you know, that's where I think it's tough, because you're not playing against the best. So like Essex aren't playing against the Yorkshires, you know, the Lancashires, all those good teams. They're playing against other teams, average teams. So and vice versa. You know, the other teams are going to be playing against, you know, good and average teams, and I just think it's just not gonna filter correctly. But I guess that's when it's going to turn into 3 divisions. So, you know, that's when it'll start to filter in how it should.
Yeah, it seems more like a cup format rather than a league format, which I guess doesn't, as you said, it doesn't reward. I feel like it doesn't reward consistency over a longer period of time. I think is probably the right way of putting it. So I guess we'll see how it goes.
And the championship season is just, you know, that's why people love it and support it, and that's why it's still going so strong, because they get so invested in your season. You know, like when I was at Kent and we were trying to go up to Div 1, you know, your fans and your members get so invested in your season that, like, even if you have a bad start, they're still behind you because they're like, come on, you know, you've still got 12 games, 13 games left, you know, where you can rectify it, or 10 games left. Whereas now it's going to be like, oh my God, like we've had a bad 5 games and we've only got 5 games left to try and get into Div 1 here. Every team wants to get into Div 1. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. But as a player, I guess it's good in the sense that because you're playing counties that are, like, location-wise, they're closest. There's less travel, isn't it? So that's the big positive, I guess.
No, it's not. It's
really?
It's red, yeah. So, for instance, we're the furthest north anyway, so we've got to travel regardless. In our group, we got...
There's Essex. I've got it here, Essex, Worcestershire, Nottinghamshire, Durham, Warwickshire and Derbyshire.
Yeah, so, you know, Essex being the furthest we'll travel. So it's not close. It's not like last season where we just played Yorkshire, Leicester, Nottingham, Lancs and Derby. So, which is obviously much closer. So it'll be interesting. But it does open the door for, like, for instance, Derby had a really good season last season, you know, in those 5 games that we played. That's the perfect example of the other county that has a very good first 5 games. You know, like now all of a sudden they're in the driving seat to be in this Division 1, just because they played really good cricket up to that point, which they deserve. But it's like, you know, do Derby deserve it more than an Essex? You know, just purely based on how the season would have gone compared to how it's going to go. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I agree. Before we wrap up, is there anything you want to touch upon?
No. Nothing in particular.
Well, thanks very much though for coming on. I really do appreciate your time, and it was great. It was a great chat. Like I learned a lot, and I tried to be a sponge with whoever I'm speaking to, especially you guys who are at the elite level. So, as someone who's an avid cricketer and fan as well, it's really good to get that insight. So I really appreciate that as well.
No problem.
Yeah, perfect. Well, all the best for the season, the upcoming season, and maybe we can catch up later on in the year or at some point, maybe. And I hope you reach those goals, and I'm sure you will. We'll see another. Hopefully, fingers crossed, you get that. You know, it clicks into gear and you get that 100. Who knows? I don't want to jinx it, but fingers crossed. And also, congratulations again on your baby girl. Hope everything goes smoothly with that as well.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Have a good evening, mate.
You too. Cheers. Bye.